I normally don't make outbound calls, but Dave Dobbs is trying to get in on the show tonight, and I'd like to show courtesy to other broadcasters, so I'm going to go ahead and call Dave. He has some information he would like to share. Fantastic. Good evening to you, sir.
Hey, how you doing, Michael? Well, Michael. I don't know what you prefer.
Mike's fine.
Mike's fine. Mike, it's very lovely to be on your very lovely to be on your show.
Thank you,
I've
Dave.
channel for a long time.
We're happy to hear from you. I heard you have some information you'd like to share regarding your Nibiru timeline.
Well, I just I was looking at Jeff P. I've just seen a number of people. You posted a video. I believe it was round about Jeff P. reposted it, or brought up the thumbnail of your last video on the. He posted the video on the 22nd.
Right. The photographs were sent to me by an individual. His name is Nathan. He goes by the moniker of Hydrobot on the channel.
Okay, yeah, it's a fantastic shot, and of course it's caused a bit of debate. It's an incredible shot. We've had quite a few shots, really, quite massive, which are so compelling. They're just absolutely shock and awe. But I've noticed that it does rather look like it's swinging by Earth, and as if it's gone past Earth at this point. And when I saw that, I thought I was feeling this kind of like this feeling of enormous relief until about an hour ago I saw. I was getting my hopes up high, thinking, my God, maybe we've done it. Maybe we're actually through it now.
Yeah, that would be a wonderful thought, right?
That would be indeed a wonderful thought to think that we could be over and above this, but or past this. But then I just saw. I've just seen Matt Rogers has put a video up. His last video, he's just put it up. And he's showing something that I'm kind of expecting to see, and it's to the right-hand side of the sun at sunrise. Now, if you were to go into Solar System Scope and look at that, you would see that if it's on the right-hand side of the sun at sunrise, it's actually effectively this image that you posted is. I mean, all these images fit directly into place. It means it has actually overtaken Earth right now. It's moved past Earth. Unfortunately, it's still between us and the sun, which means that now it's moving out and moving towards our orbital track. And I'm of a mind, obviously, that I'm firm of a mind that we ultimately will go past it. You know, it will now move in towards us closer, and then we will go across the front of it. And I'm of a mind that one of the biggest signs that we're going to see of this is an escalation in aggression, because that's what we've seen at every point this thing flies by. I'm of a mind that we are going to see an escalation in aggression, but I'm also of a mind that we're kind of, you know, we've been watching this for a very, very long time now, and seeing the patterns of the way our governments react to it, how we react to it, and how our governments react to it, and our governments always move into an aggressive maneuver. So it does rather seem that we are going to see this big, you know, that has got to get for that to enter into our night skies. As we clearly saw it last year when Turkey Report and kind of like Seven Spalding put the shots up of it entering into our night sky early February. I think we're going to see this. I think we've got the big flyby coming in imminently. I really do. I'm not trying to be a fearmonger. I'm just literally looking at the astronomical or the astronomics of the situation. You know, I've never believed that this thing's going to hit Earth. Absolutely never believed.
I don't think any serious researcher or reporter has claimed it's going to hit Earth.
I don't think so either, and I think that anyone who looks at our work is very, very quick to jump to the assumption that we are assuming that, you know, we're all doomed and this thing's going to collide and it's going to be the end of the game. I'm much more that this has a much more profound effect on the human state than than just seismic and kind of like climatic changes and all the rest of it. I have a strong feeling, but because of my own feelings of my own kind of research and my own connections to kind of like the space I go to when I write and what led me to this, but also because of the Colburn Bible. I don't know how much you've looked at the Colburn Bible. I can imagine someone, a Nibiru researcher like yourself, has probably looked at the Colburn Bible a little bit already. But
I have.
It's quite fascinating, you know, that its stance on it. It talks, you know, I paraphrase, but it says that it says something along the lines of when they came down from their mountains from their hiding places, they had no memory of who they were, and their guides and gods were gone. And I really feel as if what we're being, you know, if I, you know, I'm actually, ironically, I'm in the mountains in France. I've had to sort of come back up here to sort of get my caravan and sort a few bits and pieces out, really, because of various things. But ironically, here I am up in Europe, and I've just been hearing some of your callers' narratives on sort of like Europe, and I really want to throw another side of the narrative of Europe, in that, you know, when we were fed, I've always been pro-Europe. I've got to be honest. It's not because I'm pro-European. It's just, well, because I am European.
Right.
You know, before I go and chuck the baby out with the bathwater, I'm kind of thinking, well, actually, this is where I'm from. You know, if I heard callers calling in and saying, we've got to break up the United States, well, in some ways I might think it's a good idea, but I could also understand how people in America would be quite upset if I would be calling for the breakup of the United States. You know what I mean? And so when I hear people sort of calling for the breakup of sort of like the breakup of Europe to break all these nations down, you know, and there's another side to this that we have to also consider, because those who, when we were actually sold Brexit, I mean, I never bought Brexit at all. From the very beginning, I published a book. I published the book in 2012. You know, it was a manuscript of sorts. By 2009, I started working on 2008. It was a manuscript of sorts by 2009, and it was very near kind of like completion in sort of like in near the end of 2011. And I talked about how leaving Europe, you know, that they're gonna use Europe as a means to they're gonna try and break us away from Europe. And when they actually sold Europe to us, I don't know if you actually saw, but the main representative for Europe was Tony Blair.
Tony Blair, right.
Tony Blair. Now, can you imagine, you know, in France, when Britain went to war with Iraq, the French wouldn't join us. They wouldn't have anything to do with it. Do you remember when sort of like McDonald's took the name French fries? They took the name French out of their fries, and they replaced it with freedom fries because.
Right, I remember that.
A horrific thing, you know. I mean, we were all just like, you know, we all found it quite amusing, really, and steered even further away from McDonald's than we were already doing so. What was incredible was that every time they pulled up a representative of Europe, the main representative, which obviously was Tony would come on and say things like, "It's vital that you stay in Europe. It's vital for the war on terror that you stay in Europe." Now, you know, you could have got Tony Blair, or you could have got the boogeyman. I don't know which would have been worse. But whoever, and then him with David Cameron, the two of them, David Cameron and Tony Blair, the main representatives of Europe, and you can imagine, you only got to say that, and people are absolutely hating Europe. Everyone was hating Europe. People who didn't even think, people who actually liked Europe before were actually turning around saying, "I want to get out. I don't want anything to do with it." And then you're starting to think, well, when you're listening to all these processes, you think about what happened. You know, on the big flow, you think about what happened in Fukushima. Fukushima went bang on the 11th of March 2011. You know, we saw this massive tsunami. We saw power stations rip open, and then 1 week later, just over 1 week, maybe 8 days later, NATO is taking us into a war with Libya to rob its gold. Just like we're hearing, like the story that's escalating right now, same sort of story is escalating right now with Venezuela, isn't it?
Right.
They're going to have so many different cover stories. They're going to have all sorts of diseases, all sorts of crazy things. They're going to bring King Jong-un and about out, North Korea. They're going to bring all these different stories, so that hopefully at some point or other, sort of Venezuela should be about, as Steve Olson would call it, page 8 in the sort of like in the bigger scheme of things. But actually, is there any democratic process in NATO? Do you remember when Alex Jones was turning around, and Alex Jones was the main protagonist, really, to get sort of like, in my opinion, but Alex Jones was one of the main protagonists to get Trump in when he was shouting it all out. And one of the biggest things,
absolutely,
and one of the biggest things he used to go on about was how Trump was going to tear apart NATO. Everyone I knew that was, he just said it over and over and over again. And he absolutely shouted it out with this villainous rage that I was absolutely convinced myself. I thought, well, if this guy's going to come in and he's going to bring down the banks, he's going to stop sort of like Israel going to war, he's going to tear up NATO and all the rest of it. And everything that he said has, I mean, maybe I'm misunderstanding here, and I'm not trying to be antagonistic to other callers that might be pro-Trump, but because the thing is that most people out there have really good hearts. That's my opinion. Most people have really quite good hearts out there. I know they can be a bit misguided here and go down this corridor and that corridor, but I can imagine that most of the people that believe that Trump is a good person is probably because they're actually quite good people. And so they project that onto it. And I'm not trying to say Trump is a bad person, because maybe he in all this is trying to mediate something, and maybe he really hasn't got as much power over things as possible. But I heard him today, or I heard news stories today of how he's kind of like ratcheting up support for aggression against Iran. He's talking about aggression against Venezuela. He's talking about aggression against North Korea. He's completely in bed with Israel in ways that is just incredible. He didn't do anything to try and stop Israel's kind of bombing of Syria recently. He's completely. I mean, we're all shouting out that he's the second coming. Well, I'm certainly not, but I hear in America everyone's shouting out he's most definitely the second coming, sent from God, and yet he's contradicted everything so far, and.
Yeah. Well, Trump absolutely campaigned on a platform of nationalism and non-intervention, and we really have not seen that happen. Now, I do not blame this wholly on Trump, because, like in any country, the political figurehead of a country does not hold absolute power. And I've said before that I believe that Trump is taking advice from the wrong people, and specifically the NSA guy, John Bolton, who is one of the biggest warmongers on the face of the planet. And as long as he is advising Trump, and there are people in the upper echelon of the military who are pro-war, I think that Trump is listening to the wrong people.
Well, I really feel as if he's I mean, I just think that right now, we as the people, if they have to go to this much trouble to kind of run, the whole campaign, it wasn't hard to see, but I was watching the kind of like, well, I was watching YouTube channels that were looking at the analytics of all the big media outlets, CNN, ABC, CBS, and all the big sort of like all the big news outlets, right. And it was immediately apparent from what these people were showing was that YouTube was dwarfing all of these channels. More people were watching. People like yourself, people like myself. I haven't got as many subscribers as yourself. I haven't even got half of what you've got, actually, to be honest with you. And I haven't got. But nonetheless, all of these channels combined, more people are interested, I believe, in people like you and me that have unbiased narratives that are just open to information. We're not on the payroll of anyone. I am so broke at the moment. It's just ridiculous. And so, and I'm not chasing money or anything else like that, because I get tremendous joy I get tremendous joy out of, I wouldn't say necessarily joy, but I get a feeling of wholesome completion.
Satisfaction, sure.
I get this feeling of enormous satisfaction when I put a video up and I'm able to express a truth and get it out there and have an audience. And it's all of our dreams, and we all spent so long dreaming dreaming up ways of getting an audience. I literally went and, when I first started, I published Laughing Gas, my book, and I wanted to get publicity, and I just didn't know how to do that. And I tried. I'd been a writer for years, and I'd never got anywhere in terms of getting publicity unless I wrote for a few kind of anarchist mags here and there. But even then, it was a very, very small. I was getting a very, very kind of small readership, and when I finally published Laughing Gas, I was long enough in the tooth in one sense to realise that I had to take this. I had to take the bull by the horns. Really, I had to kind of do something. Well, I had to really engage, and so what I did was I ran for Mayor of London. I didn't have the £10,000 to run for Mayor of London, as you've got to have in London to actually run. But nonetheless, most campaigns, and I can imagine they're the same in America or along the same sort of route. But in Britain, the way a campaign works, it's most political campaigns are fixed, and this is a really, really good thing for everyone to think about this, because most campaigns are split into two time phases, and in Britain this works, and certainly in the European Union it works in a very similar fashion. And the way this works is that there's the 6 weeks prior to whatever the election is, and there's the period before those 6 weeks. And in that period before those 6 weeks, anyone can write to the body that's, say that, so I could write to the sort of London Council, the Inner London Council, or the Greater London Council, whatever it's called, the City of London now, I suppose, because it's all been changed around now since the days of Ken Livingstone and what have you. But I can write to the Greater London Council or the City of London Council, and I can say I am giving my name as a candidate for the Mayor of London, and they have to list me as a potential candidate, and I have to go on the list. Now, obviously, if I don't comply, don't come up with the £10,000 and all the necessary kind of nominee signatures and everything else, and comply with all the other paperwork and the things I've got to comply with to run, if I don't come up with all that, then in the last 6 weeks, then I can't actually be an official candidate. But before that time, I can be a completely official candidate just by notifying the said body that represents the electoral office of that particular campaign, that runs that particular campaign. And this is true, I can imagine, for I can imagine this would probably be true. I don't know if it's true for America, but I can imagine it's probably true for America. I can imagine there's a certain amount of compliance you've got to do in the last 6 weeks. And one of the reasons they have such this 6 week regulating period before an election is that a big part of that is all about expenses, to make sure that you are complying with the necessary expenses. And of course, all the small candidates have to apply by all these rules. But then if you look at someone like Nigel Farage, he was just in the newspapers every day, on every program, all the time. Brexit, all his best sound bites, and no one else got a word in. It was just all pro thing, and the only pro-European stuff we were giving was the glove puppet of the evil boogeyman, Tony Blair, the one who dumped 40,000 times more radioactive waste in the form of depleted uranium bombshells on Iraq. It then was generated by the Hiroshima bomb. And we've got Tony Blair saying, it's vital for the war on terror, you'll stay in Europe. And everyone's just like, can you see how we're all being played? Can you see how we've all had our minds fiddled by these horrible politicians that took this. The great thing about Europe is the great thing about Europe is you see all the debates on Europe. They're like the House of Commons. You've got all the different countries all coming together. It's all very open platform. You can get in. You can submit your kind of. Okay, it might not be the best system in the world, but have you ever heard of an election in NATO? Did NATO ask you if you were up for them dumping all that depleted uranium? Did NATO ask you if you were up for sort of like if you were up for invading Libya? Did NATO ask you if you're up for sort of like up for invading Venezuela or North Korea? Is NATO an elected body in any way?
The answer to that is a big firm no, Dave, as we both know. And Dave, I don't mean to be rude, but I do need to bring the show to a close for tonight. But I really appreciate having met you and having spoken to you. You're a smart guy, and I love your accent.
Oh man, it's so lovely. It's lovely hearing your show. It was lovely just coming on and just hearing it. And I just don't forget to check out Matt Rogers' latest video, because I think it really fits in with the shot that you just that you put up on the you put forward on, I think on the 22nd or just before.
I absolutely will.
Thanks for getting back to me, and thanks for having me on the show. And it's great pleasure talking to you.
Thanks a lot, Dave. You stay well, and I hope we talk again soon. Thank you very much.
Okay, bye.
Thanks a lot. Sharp guy, Dave. Appreciate that. And on that note, I'm going to bring the broadcast to a close for this evening. I appreciate each and every one of you that take time to participate in the show. Give us a thumbs up on your way out of the broadcast. If you do appreciate the show, the platform, the articles, please consider making a small PayPal donation to help us out. The link to PayPal is on our someonesbones.com website. Info listed in the description box below. We will be back tomorrow evening, 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. Thank you all.